Hello, hello. Shabbat Shalom. We are here for our Saturday night secret sermon. And as you might well notice, it is daytime. I usually do these around midnight on Saturday night, but today I was off work. The restaurant's closed for 4th of July, and I had all of these things, these concepts in my mind that were kind of fresh and ready to articulate, and so I didn't want to wait. And I kind of was ready to get into my day doing other research and writing and long walks and stuff like that. So I just wanted to come on and go ahead and do this early. So we're here for Secret Teachings of Jesus, which is usually a Saturday night secret sermon where we delve into the Gnostic Gospels. And today we are revisiting the Gospel of Thomas, saying 17. This is going to be part 3 of What No Eye Has Seen, I think is what I titled it. So we've been on this same portion for the last 2 weeks, and this is our 3rd week. And I had planned to move on from this saying, but something just kept making me want to come back to it. And then after listening to the Shabbat lecture this morning by Michael Berg, and it was from last week's, so it was like the consciousness lecture that he would have given last Saturday morning Shabbat that would have prepared us for this week's portion of Pinchas. And I can't repeat all the things back perfectly, but there were a couple of things that he brought up that were about how we direct our eternal light, which is the sparks of light in the Creator that animate us from within. And how we direct those kind of determine whether we experience light or darkness, aka life and fulfillment and abundance and well-being, or like versus death, chaos, judgment, destruction, and what have you. So let's read this portion and then we'll get into it, and I will unpack all these thoughts that I thought were relevant to this passage. So we're in the Gospel of Thomas, circling back to portion 17, and we've been talking about this portion. We've done 2 45-minute, an hour episodes on this one already. So if you are like, I feel like there's more to this, we've talked a lot about it. So those 2 episodes are really interesting. They should be in the Secret Teachings of Jesus playlist, like right in a row together. All right. So Jesus said, "I shall give you what no eye has seen, what no ear has heard, and what no hand has touched, what has not arisen in the human heart." So, Jesus talks about several different concepts, and they're lofty concepts that you can't really interpret on a surface, literal, mundane level. It's like a metaphoric or allegorical mechanism that he uses with these sayings. And he talks about the true human a lot, and he talks about, like in another instance, how you can't put new wine in old wineskins. So when Jesus brought his ministry, he was radicalizing the current established temple system and exegetical and religious understanding of the Hebraic tradition of the time. Now let's go back to Michael Berg's lecture on the portion of Pinchas. So around this portion, there are other stories too that seem to kind of skip around. And towards the end of the 40 years, this guy Pinchas had to do something that would require that he do something that goes against his nature and do something bold and courageous, and for the sake of doing what is right and obeying his divine calling and guidance. And it caused him to have to do a great courageous act and face his fears. And so because of this, he acted in accordance with his higher truth, with his higher purpose, not maybe what would have been the obvious logical path, right? The responsible logical path maybe would have called him elsewhere. It would have looked true, but it wasn't the higher truth for him. So he followed his higher truth, and he was given this extra life force. He awakens this level of righteousness in himself that he kind of transcended death in a way. And he had an extra long life, and he didn't die the way normal people do. He died in the way that higher Siddiqs kind of die, in this elevated way. So this, a little while, or another kind of story in this portion has to do with some women who came to Moses later on towards the end of the 40 years, and they wanted to revisit certain laws, and they went to Moses and pleaded their case, and they had some laws updated and changed. And so there's this idea that, okay, and so then the other point, 3 points before we look at the big picture, then skip forward to the fact that Joshua actually got to take the people into the promised land. Joshua was the servant's assistant, the right-hand man to Moses. Joshua was Moses' assistant, his servant. And so, a clerical, not just like a butler or anything. But Moses didn't get to take the Israelites into the promised land, into the land of milk and honey. He died just before they went. And it was the Israelites came to the end of their journey where they had their patriarch Moses there to sort of be the conduit and the voice of God to them. They trusted Moses to be the ultimate vessel to receive the clear message, to tell them the law, to be their ultimate moral compass and spiritual guide and spiritual leader. And they kind of passively followed Moses through the wilderness. But at the end of that journey, Moses took his exit, and the Israelites didn't get to just follow passively anymore. They had to go to a next level. They had to take on more responsibility. They had to take on their own kind of sovereignty and take on these beliefs and adopt these systems and laws and practices for themselves and govern themselves and continue on and lead. And so that was requiring a new level of a relationship with the Creator too, because up until then it was the Creator was sort of coming down to meet the Israelites where they were at, to nurse them along in the beginning. But then after that, it was the Creator kind of ascended a bit, and the Israelites had to step up. Even think of the imagery of the Israelites coming to the base of Mount Sinai and God being at the top of Mount Sinai. And in order to go visit with God, you had to ascend to the top of Mount Sinai, and God would descend from the heavenly realms to meet us down in our lowlier place, right? So there's this next level where the Israelites had to take on more responsibility, and one era had died away, and the old way of approaching God and establishing their relationship and their covenant and the way that they performed their sacrifices with God was coming to an end. It's they were on the right path all that time by keeping the path and the practices the way it was. But then once they got to the next phase, there were people that didn't want to do these changes and these evolutions. They wanted to keep it old school, purists it was, and they didn't want to evolve, right? And so sometimes we can be, and we talked about this concept too, on the right path, but the path turns, and we just keep going in the same direction, which takes us seemingly off path. It's we still were going on the right direction that we were guided towards, but we didn't realize that the direction had changed and we hadn't changed. So we're constantly evolving. That's the thing about the Kabbalists. They never arrive at their spiritual resting place. They're always evolving. They're always in the desert. They're always moving to the next thing, the next phase. So they themselves at this point, this juncture in the end of the 40 years in the wilderness, as they're traveling through this portal into the land of milk and honey, the promised land, the next phase of their life, they have to change their consciousness and their practices and evolve. And all through the Hebraic journey of the Israelites, of the Jewish people, they were always updating their covenant. It would begin as this, and they would keep that covenant, and then there would be a circle back, refresh. Let's, bring this this covenant into new terms, right? To keep this this relationship with God changes. Just like when you have a child and your infant needs you, and it's just taking, and it just and you know what it needs, kind of, and that's the only way it can express any kind of relationship, is just receive, because it can't do for itself yet. So then the relationship with the child gradually matures over time as the child has more self-possession and wherewithal, and has the capacity to do more for the self, and to choose more for the self, and to appreciate more about the relationship than just what can I gain, but also what can I give back. So God's relationship with his people over time has had, when the higher truth always remains, and the truth that has expired decays and sheds, like leaves. So Michael Berg was relating this to the sparks of light that we lost in the garden at the fall of Adam, and the greater idea of that we are animated by the sparks of light of the Creator. Our attention, our desire, our animating force is the light of the Creator. And so when we invest that animating force into the tree of knowledge of good and evil, into negativity, into worry or fear, or even just watching negativity in social media and all of this stuff, we're investing our light into what is essentially death and darkness, which causes us to spill out that light that is the protection and the blessing and fulfillment. And so it opens us up to more of what we call a process, but that process can look like unpleasantness and chaos and judgment and whatnot. So like anything that we put our light into that isn't of the highest truth, it's not real, it's falsehood, then that dies away, it decays. But what is of the highest truth, what is real, what is of the utmost truth, never dies. Jesus said that what his words are will never pass away. His words will never pass away. It will never die. His actions will never die. And look at even just the ancient writings that they tried to destroy that survived. The scripture survived. Jesus's message, no matter how much people tried to hijack it or pervert it or change it or manipulate it, it has lived, it has survived. So the highest truth, the real truth, ultimately always experiences eternal life, because it's in alignment with the Creator. It's a reflection of the Creator. It's in the image of the Creator. So when we invest our light into the higher truth, right, the ultimate truth, what is real, what is true, it manifests as eternal light within us. And the things that we're doing, if they're in alignment with that, if we're on the path, that right path, that divine path, then those things will not be without challenge, but they will be held, supported, blessed. You will eventually start seeing bearing fruit. And the spiritual fruit never dies. It never goes away. Light that is revealed within our soul never goes away. It never leaves us. So when Jesus came along, so this, you'll see that throughout the Bible, these big stories follow these certain allegorical patterns, right? And these timelines and these cycles, right? So at the end of the 40 years with Moses, the people, the Israelites and their faith were having like a growth moment. It was growing, it was changing, it was evolving. But it was, in conjunction with where the Creator was leading them. It wasn't just them doing it on their own. It was what was needed to nurture a growing connection with the Creator, not a stagnant one. So then come around, 2,000 years later, when Jesus comes on the scene, and he is bringing an entire new covenant all over again. You've gone through the period of having like the prophets and the writers, where deeper concepts behind the law of the Torah were being revealed, and prophecies of the messianic figure and age that were to come were being hidden within the prophecies, within these poems and rhemas and all of these things. So there's all this foretelling of this big evolutionary change that is coming again. And when Jesus comes on the scene, he is first trying to share this message with the Jewish people, because it's really about reforming the Jewish faith, rather than inviting, the general public in. He kind of wanted to focus there first. It's just that it took off, and the general public were less, they were easier students because they weren't attached to the old ways of Judaism. So a lot of people saw that these changes and they were threatened. And then a lot of other people saw these changes and they felt like it was the inevitable next step in the evolution of one continuous faith that kept going. So some split off in disagreement, and some followed the path that Jesus was evolving and continuing. So Jesus was sitting there telling people, you can't put new wine in old wineskins, because the wine starts to expand and bubble. And if you put it in an old skin, the old skin is not pliable. It's not lush and soft. It's old. It's fragile. It's crackety. It's not tenacious, right? It's stiff. It'll crack. It'll bust. So it's not flexible. So you want to put new wine in new wineskins, which means that the old structures and systems are not going to necessarily hold these new concepts, these new approaches. We're going to have to come to an evolution, a newness, even in the structures through which our beliefs and practices are held. Right? It's a whole new day. It's a whole new life. And so there is a concept that Jesus talks about being a true human. Well, if you look at what would be the opposite of a true human, a false human, well, when we're born and before we're awakened, we're just living at this lower level of consciousness, this animal consciousness, basically, where we believe the simulation and we believe the illusion and we believe the world that is projected to us through the consciousness of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And we believe all the illusions that are spun up to us by the adversary and this material world. And we forget that this is an illusion, and that this is sort of like a gauntlet, or like a holograph or a projection or a matrix that we are going through, that's actually projecting to us what we need in order to awaken our actual highest true self, our true expression of self as a human, but as a soul, not the lower self. Not the lower self that's just asleep, a cog in the wheel of illusion, right? But someone who's awakened and remembers their true identity and their true oneness and wholeness with God, right? So that lower person, that consciousness, is completely like filtered and going through the lens of the ego, the selfish, evil inclination to survive, to grab, to receive for the self alone, to want the lazy way, the easy way, the instant gratification. I want validation. I want easy answers. I want guarantees, right? That's the lower self, the self that comes already assembled out of the box. But there are upgrades to the self. We go through this life as like a robotic, animal-like human being. And we, do all those animal-like, robotic, human things until one day we go through enough pressure, right, to catalyze an evolution within us. And it might strike an awakening, a spiritual awakening, a conscious awakening. And if we awaken to Christ's consciousness, the consciousness state that Jesus was here to bring to people, to give to people, and we start to see things from that perception, then we align with our higher truth. We align as a true human. We remember the truth, the higher truth of who we are, which activates our eternal light within us. When we start to invest our divine sparks of light within ourselves, our creativity, our attention, our focus, our intention, our resources on the higher truth, the higher light, goodness, where the soul is leading us, what our unique work as a soul is in this life. We start to unite with that, then it sort of unlocks this immortal essence within us, and we have more sway or authority over this lower material world. But first and foremost, we start to be awakened, and we can see things and perceive things differently than we would have. It gives us a change of mind. It gives us a change of heart. We have all new eyes. We have all new ears. It's almost as if we were born again as an entirely new creature who has a different mindset, a different consciousness, different levels of empathy and compassion, wisdom and understanding, and empowerment and sovereignty. And so when we can actually harness that and own that, but not own it, know that we're a conduit for the light of the Creator, not the owners of anything. We're not manifesting anything. We're just managing this energy. Then we activate something within us that activates a cosmic authority. And it's not really ours, but it's like we're deputized by the Creator at that point. And so when Jesus is saying, I shall give you what no eye has seen, what no ear has heard, and what no hand has touched, what has not arisen in the human heart, it means that if you're not awakened to this level of consciousness, if you're not awakened beyond that animalistic, robotic nature, and actively choosing that, then the messages that Jesus gives, you won't perceive it. You won't understand it. You won't hear it. It won't settle. It won't sink. You might even hear it and be like, yeah, I understand that, but I just don't agree. I don't like that, right? Because the vessel has to be prepared to receive it. Jesus spoke in allegories and metaphors and poetry and imagery. And some people were like, this is kind of cryptic. Why can't you just straight up say to people what you mean? That way there's no confusion. That way everybody can understand you. And Jesus was like, there are certain things, the soul of the wisdom that I'm giving is hidden beneath garments, because I don't want the blind to have this powerful information, because they don't have the capacity to receive it and utilize it yet. So this is light that isn't, it's like you have to make an effort to refine yourself to be able to channel this light. It's not necessarily that it's earned, but this light cannot be put into an old animalistic robotic wineskin. It just won't. So Jesus is like, I hide my truth out of plain sight so that it's out of sight of the blind. So those who can truly see will see, those who have eyes to see will see, and those who have ears to hear will hear, right? Because they are prepared enough to receive this information and this higher truth, and it reveal greater truth in their life. They can align with it. They won't try to take light that's too hot for them to handle, right? If you're standing out in the sun or out on a boat under the sunlight for all day, and the light is bouncing up off the water, you will cook, you will fry. There's too much direct hot light on you, right? You need to take the light that you can handle, right? Somebody like me has to be in the shade, and watch the amount of exposure that I'm getting, even if it doesn't seem like it, right? Same for this. It's like light that's revealed that you can't handle or that you're not prepared to embody. It becomes like spending on a spiritual credit card and racking up a bunch of interest. It then requires like a process. So basically, if you haven't become an awakened person and you're not elevating your consciousness into and putting and actively practicing putting your light in what is eternal and what is of the tree of life, then you won't perceive what Jesus would point out is a blessing, right? You wouldn't understand that. You wouldn't appreciate it. It would be counterintuitive to you, right? But when you hear that truth and your vessel is prepared to receive it, it's like you can tune in and it strikes a chord and you resonate and you do receive that. And it's like when coaches or teachers or even therapists, right? They don't tell you what to think. They don't tell you what you should do. They don't tell you what parts of you are holding yourself back. They ask you all the right questions, hopefully guiding you to come to this conclusion yourself. Because when you see it from the inside through your eyes and you have that eureka moment for you, it is an entirely different kind of lived experience and understanding than someone just trying to say it at you and you passively just taking it. Okay, I'll do that. But it's not, you might be accepting it, but it's not taking root the same way it would as if the idea occurred to you before somebody just said it to you. It gives you even though it's not even your idea, you just were able to tune into the radio station and tune into the truth that was already existing. You get a sense of fulfillment. You're like, oh yay, this is awesome, right? It's like, back to the idea that we don't manifest the energy, but we manage it, and the creator's manifesting it through our management of it. And there was one of the students in my class, he pointed out that when he's making his son breakfast, and he's cutting up the fruit, the father is essentially making the breakfast, but the toddler, 3-year-old, 2-year-old, whatever, brings him a banana, and he's like, oh wow, thank you for bringing me the banana, you did such a good job, like wow, you really helped. And it's not that the 3-year-old is really making like an impactful a great impact on the actual breakfast as a whole, but that is that involvement for the child is not only giving the child a greater sense of fulfillment, but it's giving the child the skills to one day make the breakfast, giving the child the confidence, and the understanding of how the parts and the pieces and the process that is preparing food, making breakfast, right? Same for us. We're co-creators, but the creator doesn't need us. We just get to participate because it's better that way. When the creator originally created light and then vessel, it was just creator was just endlessly spewing light into the vessel, and the vessel was like, hey, I can't receive all this. It's too much. Like, I need to do something. I want to do something to also be a part of this. I want to share. I want to, receive in a proactive way and not just in a passive way here. And so there was a veil of restriction. And so then the vessel then was able to go through a process of self-refinement so that they can participate in uniting with the light, not just being spewed at, forced upon the light. The light, I want to give you all this, and you're just like, I don't have the capacity to receive it. Like, it's too much. So the zoom is the process of restriction that allows us the opportunity to go through a process to prepare the vessel to receive the light. All right, so Jesus said, I shall give you what no eye has seen, what no ear has heard, and what no hand has touched, what has not arisen in the human heart. So what God will reveal is always going to be a living word, a living truth, a living wisdom. So it's not that things just stay the same and it's about memorizing facts and sticking to the facts, right? There is an understanding that builds layers and depths on top of foundational understanding. All right, I think that is all for tonight, you guys. I'm gonna go bebop around the forest, do some research. It's so funny. So I've been telling you guys I've been researching for my for our next episode or issue or episode or whatever of Secret Teachings on Substack. And I have been reading like about 6-7 articles that have just been sort of like, some of them are a little bit paradoxical, some of them contradict a little bit, some of them I was getting confused, and then I started realizing that some of them are literally just taking from the other articles or whatever. So I've read them enough times where I've caught them plagiarizing each other. I know I've caught up on the whole internet. I've gotten to the bottom of this. But so I have been working on that. And so that should be, I'm hoping to finish taking in the information today so that I can either make the video tonight or tomorrow. But I think it'll involve both an article written out to give a good reference point to go back to use as reference material. And then the video will be good for, like teaching and giving examples and elaborating on the ideas. But yeah, I'm really excited. I'll let you guys know when I'm ready to launch that. In the meantime, you can find me on Substack at Elizabeth Rose or The Elizabeth Rose, and same for Patreon, The Elizabeth Rose or Elizabeth Rose. And so it'll be the same content on both of those platforms. You can follow me for free on both and get most of all of my public content that I put out everywhere, just all in one place. And then as far as the paid tier, it's like we're going to be doing more deep wisdom studies with scripture and going into specific spiritual concepts and having a more structured curriculum. Whereas like during the week, we talk about issues as they come up in the moment, week to week, day to day. But this will be like more of a structured educational environment. I'm excited about it. So I'm excited to get this initial kind of project up. I think this is the one that's causing me the most trouble, and probably not for, it's probably for all the reasons that creatives struggle, the war of art, as they say. So yes, that'll be coming soon. And I also have intentions to upload the 2026 prediction series to the paid tier on Substack. I've just been struggling to find the time to do that as well. So I'm going to be working on that. It's my highest priorities. And if you are already on Patreon, then you can just follow there because you'll already have access to 2026 prediction series. It's already up over there. All right, you guys, I hope that you have a good rest of your week, and I'll see you on the next one. Ciao.